We know that Joe Burrow is undergoing surgery. It's going to be a while. So if we're being really optimistic here, is there a thought he could return in time for the playoffs?
Yeah, that seems to be the belief. The number that everyone keeps throwing around is 3 months, and I think it's noteworthy that when they say that is the optimistic side of things. So if you go 3 months from today, that's the middle of December. That would obviously determine, we would know by then if the Bengals are in the hunt for the playoffs. If they're not, I would imagine Joe doesn't come back at all. If they are, maybe it's more of a possibility. I seem to think personally, from everyone that I've talked to, both medically and professionally and all this other stuff, that even December 15th is a real long shot. So maybe if they're in the playoffs in January, it's a possibility, but I have my doubts about that.
Yeah, so the question is, do we think the Bengals can make the playoffs? I will say this, at least they finally started the season on a good note. They are 2-0. Jake Browning at least has some experience in this offense. Do you think the Bengals can make the playoffs?
Yeah, I want to know who made a deal with the devil to get the Bengals to start fast, but it meant we have to lose Joe Burrow, and he's not going to be a part of this. It's crazy to be 2-0, but it feels like 0-2 without him. But you do look at Jake Browning, and you're handing him the keys to an offense that has the NFL's Triple Crown leader, or Triple Crown receiver from a year ago. T. Higgins is really good. You still have a dynamic and explosive running back in Chase Brown. There are good pass catchers in Noah Fant and Mike Gesicki at the tight end position. So you look at that and say, okay, well, obviously he should be able to operate this offense. And we saw him do it once before in the 2023 season when Burrow went down for the final 6 games. Jake performed well in that stretch. And so the way that he performed on Sunday, despite throwing a few bad interceptions, which, I'll cut him some slack coming into the game like that, I think there is a belief here that, okay, based on the schedule, there's some games here that are winnable for Jake Browning. But when it comes down to it, is he going to be able to go and win you a game on the road or at home against the Detroit Lions or on the road against the Green Bay Packers? Those are tall tasks. I don't know if Bengals fans feel great about that right now, but you certainly feel like he can do the bare minimum to keep them in contention. It's up to everybody else around him stepping up to maybe get them over the edge and into the playoffs.
So, Austin, if we're talking about Jake Browning doing the bare minimum, is there a possibility that the Bengals say we want more and they look at someone like a Kirk Cousins or bring someone else in the interim?
Yeah, I know Adam Schefter was talking yesterday that the Bengals have been calling around. I know there was even a report about them talking to the Packers about Malik Willis. Historically, the Bengals aren't going to bring somebody in to challenge Jake Browning. They will bring someone in to kind of fill out the bottom of the roster or maybe compete with Brett Rippon, who's the backup right now to Jake Browning. When this happened a couple of years ago, they went and plucked A.J. McCarron out of the XFL or SFL or whatever league that was. So I wouldn't expect them to go after Cousins, especially because of the contract. I think Jameis Winston is really interesting, and I think he would be a lot of fun with those receivers and in this offense.
Yeah.
I also would, make a call about somebody like Andy Dalton and see if the Panthers would be willing to move on from him, as crazy as that might sound, just for that stability behind Jake Browning. But I wouldn't expect them to go and get somebody who would try to challenge Jake to start, just simply because they don't operate that way.
I wanted to ask about the defense because I think coming into the season, everybody's like, oh my gosh, this defense is terrible. But so far, they've looked, at least decent, which again, the expectations were very low. But when you talk about needing a complete team around Jake Browning for this team to win games, will the defense be able to hold down their part of the bargain?
The ultimate question. And the conversation going into the year was, can Burrow keep the Bengals alive for the first month until the defense figures it out? Well, so far, the defense, to their credit, has been opportunistic. They have tackled better. They have been in the right spot at the right time when balls get tipped into the air to intercept them. And Trey Hendrickson has come alive a little bit over the first 2 weeks of the season. So if you believe that, and like you mentioned, the bar is very low. Last year, they were in the bottom 3 defenses in the NFL. Can they get to number 20 in the NFL? Well, that was the goalpost with Joe Burrow at quarterback, it might need to be moved up to number 15 in the NFL if they want to get to the playoffs this year. So I do think it's going to be a challenge for them to do so. There's still a lot of young players, a lot of growing pains, a new system, a new scheme that is developing. I've seen some flashes. I've seen some things that excite me, but I'm still not fully convinced that the defense is going to be good enough.
We're talking with Austin Elmore, host on ESPN 1530 and 700 WLW in Cincinnati, also host of the Ball Don't Lie podcast. Austin, why hasn't this franchise over the years invested more in protecting Joe Burrow?
Yeah, I think that's one of the talking points that maybe is a little bit misguided, because since Joe has been here, they have invested in that position. They signed Alex Kappa. They signed Ted Karras. They went out and signed a Pro Bowl left tackle in Orlando Brown Jr. They've spent draft capital in the first, second, and third rounds on offensive linemen, most notably Amarius Mims, who's the starting right tackle, Dylan Fairchild at left guard, Cordell Volson, Jackson Carman. There's been a ton of investment into that position. They've also gone through now 3 offensive line coaches since Burrow has been here. So they've always been tweaking and trying to figure it out. And I think now the shift for a lot of Bengals fans has gone to, okay, well, they have tried, but they have failed. So is it the players, or is it the scheme, or is it the way Burrow runs the offense, or how exactly? We're all looking for solutions and for someone to blame here. But right. I think you can look at this offseason and say, they had opportunities and cap space and a possibility to go and get better options than Lucas Patrick and Dalton Reisner, and they didn't do it, and they deserve blame for that. There have been those situations where, okay, let's go get somebody out there who's going to cost you a little bit more, but you at least know who they are, rather than a competition in camp or somebody that you might be more familiar with, like Cody Ford, who they re-upped on this year. So it's fair to blame them for not being more aggressive at that position. They have certainly tried, but it's failed, and I think they need to reevaluate their process.